Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Technology is amazing in terms of changing our lives. A lot of things going on that you probably don't even know about, including an organization that is a nonprofit, and their goal, and this is a broad stroke in terms of explaining what they do. He can do that much better than I can. But essentially, it's like colony in space. Eventually, it could become that Noah's Ark in space, if you will. And the organization is Helical. Do I have that right?
Yes, correct. Thank you.
I always want to make sure I say it right. And Michael Barry is behind that. And they're working on all sorts of artificial intelligence to get this done. Welcome back, Michael. How you doing?
Great. It's great to be back. Thank you. I guess the best place to go to, or the best place to start would be, we're working on a couple of LLMs, language learning models, for the purpose of getting to artificial general intelligence. The two language learning models that we're trying to work on right now are Helix Esquire, which is the legal version of Helix, which summarizes bills. It simplifies and makes more transparent the process of governing the social contract, that kind of thing. And then our other LLM is Dr. Helix, which is which will be doing medical language. It'll be able to summarize, or it'll go through the process of filling in bills or medical billing, making the process of trying to work with patients much easier by reducing the amount of paperwork.
So, and I have friends that do medical billing and all that. And oh my gosh, it is like a logistical nightmare. There's so many different moving parts. You have the procedure that was done, then it calls out a certain codes. Then, there's dispute between, could be the patient, the insurance company, back and forth all over the place. Do you think, and I think it's fantastic to get that done in a much easier, streamlined fashion and save so much money. But do you think you're talking about a lot of AI here. Do you think it takes away the personal experience or just enhances everything?
Yeah, that's a great question. I honestly think that what we would like to do with Dr. Helix is to make the ability for a medical professional to have maximum interaction with patients, and reduce the amount of paperwork that they're doing, such that the majority of their existence or their expertise could be spent on patients rather than having to deal with any of the infrastructural stuff, the paperwork, the back, what you're talking about, the billing, the insurance companies, all that crazy stuff. Like, by simplifying that whole database, it should save that entire network a lot of trouble.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. And now I'm getting, a better slice of what you're looking to do with your colleagues, where there's many different facets of Helix or Helical, but the end result is the space to colonize space. Do I have that right?
Yeah. With the LLMs, the next step will be artificial general intelligence. With artificial general intelligence, we'll have the ability to build construction robots that will be much better adapted to their environment, rather than sending humans or sending biological creatures or whatever towards building this large structure. So we felt the best place to start was building the construction robots, sending them out there. Once they get there, they can take things like, we're petitioning Senator Hickenlooper right now for shares of Psyche 16, in the interest of being in line with the UN's International Space Treaty, which says that any resources in space have to be utilized for the good of all mankind, all sorts of things like that. So, sorry. But I think the moral of that whole story is, that with the AGI, with the first step being the AGI, what we'll be able to accomplish is generating the infrastructure behind the actual building of the platform or of the arc, as it's colloquially referred to. The next step is actually going to be the most tricky, and that's developing the material, because we're trying to build this thing in situ rather than build it on Earth and then send a bunch of material up into space. Our goal is to send these robots out. They can do everything in place. There's not anything that they cannot build in place. So we're trying to use materials that are found on asteroids, and we're trying to figure out a special way of refining those materials so that they can turn into suitable like a foundation for the structure, if you will. So it'll be like pouring the concrete for the basement, basically. We'll be trying to find the most appropriate material for the concrete. So like, do we want to mix a certain amount of lime? Do we want to mix a certain amount of volcanic ash? And do we want a certain amount of calcium? And do we want a certain amount of this and carbon and this and that and the other? And so we got to figure out how to get that material just right. And then once we get the material just right, we'll be able to use the robots to manufacture the stuff in situ. Once they manufacture the stuff in situ, they'll be able to manufacture it into basically IKEA-like parts that the other robots can then grab and then fit into place as it's being as the general structure is being built. Because the first step is the actual mining, refining of the materials, and then once all the materials mined and refined, and then you have enough IKEA basic parts, then you can start to build the foundation. You can start to build the concrete into the ground, where you're going to start setting all of the other things so that you can build on top of that as it goes. So it'll go AGI, then materials science, from material science to space architecture, from space architecture to designing the actual design while the resources in situ are being broken down and being put into IKEA-like parts. And then once all the IKEA parts are together, and then the space architecture piece has been finalized. And that's because with most architecture, you have to be aware of the material first in order to build with it. So if we're not sure what we're going to be doing with how much of what is on these asteroids in the asteroid belt. So for example, let's just say cobalt is one of the things that's most abundant. Then we have to specialize in cobalt mining and manufacturing to be able to break that down and turn that into a suitable material so that it can protect, the inhabitants, as it can keep its structure and its shape. If radiation tries to harm it, it won't be harmed by radiation, anything like that. So in this example, we would go there, we would refine all the cobalt we could possibly find in the asteroid belt, break it down into IKEA-like parts. And then while we're doing that, we would work on the actual space architecture. From the space architecture, we could model and test and build with the material. So we can do like in space, in vacuo, model architecture. I think Grasshopper 3D is an architectural software that allows you to do things like build buildings and adjust for like movement, and what are you going to do with like stress points and like that kind of thing. So yeah, so that would be the next step after that. And then after that, it would be environment building would be the next step after that. So the structure would be built. We would be building the most walkable environment that we could possibly design on the platform. And that's to accommodate both nature and human life, or whatever it is that we become as we sort of move forward in space or whatever. And so yeah, so that once we get to that point, it'll be ecosystem building. It'll be like how to as an example, when they reintroduced wolves to Yellowstone, the entire landscape of Yellowstone changed because the amount of prey animal or like deer, antelope, or whatever's running around Yellowstone, all the reindeer, all that kind of stuff. Actually, I think they're only in Norway. I think reindeer are only in Norway, but I'm not sure. Whatever. Oh, elk, right? Yeah. Okay. So whatever was running around in Yellowstone, when they reintroduced wolves, because of their grazing patterns, they weren't eating the same bushes anymore. They weren't eating the same bushes the same way because they had to move more around. The elk had to migrate more. They were getting killed faster, and so they had to change. They had to readapt to eating a larger variety of food, and so as a result of that, the water, or not the water table, but like the river or whatever that was in there is also changing. So it's just interesting to see how when you add a element to an environment, how it can have a dramatic impact on not just the creatures that are living there, but also on the environment itself, like the shape of the river, which will then in turn change what does the mountain formation look like and that kind of thing.
What, aside from funding, which is something that, of course, it's a nonprofit organization and you welcome that, and there's things being done to fundraise for the goal and the project. What would you say right now is your biggest challenge, Michael, aside from funding?
Yeah, you know, it's funny that I think almost every entrepreneur, every business owner, or any person who's in a very sort of situation where they're looking to grow, they're looking for talent, they're looking for resources to grow. I think really one of the other biggest limiting factors is genuinely finding good talent that has the ability to perform at a if you want to call it a negotiable or reasonable at a reasonable price. We've gone through a whole bunch of tech people because there are people who will come up and say, okay, yeah, well, we can help you write this code, and we'll do it for $100. But then something that you wouldn't even think about before you even converse with them, it would be, as far as I'm concerned, bait and switch. But add-ons later, like, oh, well, here's the code, but if you want to save the code and you want to encrypt the code so no one else can see your code, so they can't hack your computer or whatever it is, that's going to be an extra $200 or $300.
Hmm.
And so what we found in our experience is that that there are and I'm sure it is with a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of people who are looking for really good talent right now. Companies who are looking to grow, we found some good talent in Lebanon, for example. We've found some good talent in Bangladesh, for example.
Wow.
Yeah, there is some good talent that's here. I still think that there is good talent here in the U.S. But I suppose one of the issues is trying to get connected to that talent and trying to figure out. It's sort of like going to a dentist. It's like when you're going to a dentist for the first time, you have no idea whether or not the dentist is going to be any good, or if they're going to cause irreparable damage to your nerves or to your face or to anything. And so it's kind of one of those situations where when you're entering into some of these negotiations or contracts with some of these tech people, or even some of these graphic designers, or I mean just people across the board. I mean it's been almost everybody across the board. We've run into some of these situations where people upsell or bait and switch or doing these things, and it gets rough because then you have to look inwards and you have to ask your in-house talent to do things that they're not really designed to do or meant to do. uh,
Hmm.
and so it causes you to adapt, which is great. which I think is part of evolution, or I think adaptation is really the main piece to that, which is good. But like, so we've adapted, and we've found some people that we've hired, and we've been able to generate more code, and we've been able to generate more work, and all these other problem solving things. Um, but yeah, for the amount of talent that you have to go through in order to really find that really great like dedicated, genuine, um, uh, yeah, and and I mean, and I think Elon, if I may quote Elon Musk here, sometimes a lot about it, if I may put it in this way, I think a lot of it too is about heart condition too. I
How do
think
you
that
mean?
if you have, sorry, go ahead.
How do you mean about that condition?
Heart condition, how I personally define heart condition is like selection bias, or the way by one collapses information, the algorithm that collapses the information in the environment into your subjective experience, or whatever it is what I refer to as like what they call heart condition. But it's like, if you have, so I guess the best way I can put it is this: if you have a person who has a really good heart, who is really dedicated, who is genuinely, honestly, like, I am in this, I am trying as hard as I can, I'm doing my best, I would take a million of those over someone who comes in and goes, I'm a technical expert, I'm incredibly good at what I do, but my work, I may not hit deadlines, I may not, like, I may upcharge, I may, like, there's all of this hidden sort of like stuff that goes on with it. And like I said, for those people who are like, dedicated, who are genuine, who have that good heart condition, who are like, yeah, I can, if you're willing to take someone who is willing to make mistakes, and you're willing to make mistakes, but you're willing to grow from it, like, I am totally like all about that kind of stuff. And I would take a million of those people over some of these super tech expert sort of people, because a lot of the technical stuff that we have nowadays, I really think is trainable. You can go on to, like, for example, you can go on to Python Academy or pythoncourses.com or whatever it is. I've actually invested in some people and said, hey, look, I'm not even expecting a whole bunch of like material value out of you yet. I'm just trying to help you get to a point where I'm investing in you to the point where, when you do get there, if you wouldn't mind, reciprocating, that would be in the best interest of not only you, but us, but all life on the planet, and everyone wins, and it's an amazing deal for everybody. And that's kind of how that's been approached. And like I said, we're looking for people who I would take and hire someone who literally doesn't even know how to code yet, and would say, I will invest in teaching you how to do code for this particular application or whatever. It'll take you a month to train you up on this particular application, whatever it is. And we'll train you up. And then you can do extra stuff along the way, and we'll train you on that extra stuff along the way, and get you there. I would take, like I said, I would take a million of those people, versus some of these technical experts who have upsold and really not delivered.
Well, I totally get what you're saying, because it's here. If you have the drive, the desire, the dedication to the project, the team, you may not have all the skills, but we can do anything we want. We can. I can't ballroom dance. Okay. I really don't have a desire. I don't think I'm coordinated. Can I do it? If I put my mind to it, and I dedicate myself to it, and I take the lessons, and I practice, and I focus, I'm sure I could do it. Same thing. I'd love to play bass guitar. Same thing. If you put your mind to it, if you have the right person that is on board for it, they could be taught, they could be brought into the organization. Before we run out of time, I always wanted to ask you this question, and you brought his name up before, Michael. Elon Musk. So it seems that he's got the same kind of visions, not the same exact, but in terms of progressive technology that is fueling Helix, in terms of getting into space, in terms of the Tesla, all of that. Would you say that you have respect for him in terms of
Oh,
what
a
he's doing?
lot.
Yeah.
I honestly, I feel that there is a set of peers, and that set of, because I've been doing this informally since 1995. So my propagation of life past life expectancy of the earth has been something I've held on to since I was a 6 year old. It was something I talked to with my grandfather. I mean, it's something I cared about a lot. And I actually remember, well, I don't remember episodically, but it was in 2002. I was in Miss Brunn's class, and it was the first time I saw SpaceX. And I was blown away. It's when they had the picture when they were doing the mariachi thing in the room.
Mhm.
And and as soon as I saw that, I was like, I don't know who this person is. I was like, but in my mind, this person is also incredibly dedicated to this idea of making sure that stasis goes beyond Earth. When he said he was doing what he was doing so the light of consciousness does not die here, I was like, there are a few people that I genuinely feel are very like genuinely like-minded in that way of
Mhm.
wow, on completely on his own, completely on his own, saw this need, just like Dr. Zubrin, who is also, I feel, the third of our like little understanding group, because Dr. Zubrin is I think he was a NASA scientist who's been pushing for Mars exploration ever since Challenger, the Challenger disaster that happened in '86.
Yep.
And he was one of the fiercest voices in the room to say we have to continue, we have to justify continuing giving NASA program funding, and we have to continue with our push towards Mars, and we have to continue with this. So Dr. Zubrin, Elon Musk, and I believe myself are in that category of people who independently in the '80s and '90s looked at this situation and went, wow, we have to do something about this. And then it was just amazing how in 2012, roughly around, it all just sort of coalesced. I got out of the military. Elon Musk, the company went public. Had I had money, I would have invested everything I had in Tesla. And and it was such a beautiful start, because I think that was really the point at which we were all kind of finding our stride in terms of Elon Musk. Obviously, he's older,
Yeah.
so so he's like kind of like the well, I think maybe Dr. Zubrin is the oldest, but but as far as I'm concerned, he's kind of like the older brother, I guess, or whatever of the
Sure.
group or whatever. And so I have nothing but respect towards both of them, and I'm very very grateful for all of their work. We hope to work with SpaceX not only with our special material, but also putting our robots to the asteroid belt. So like I said, it's great to feel like I can be among that peer group of people who saw this need for life on the planet and really tried everything they could to do everything about it, and to bring that awareness to it. And also grateful to my grandfather for for bringing that, for helping me develop that idea.
Yeah. Amazing. And I think we take a lot of this, the average person takes a lot of this technology for granted because we don't, unless you sit inside a Tesla, you don't get it. It's, my friend has one. I'm like, he's like, got another update. I'm like, what do we got today? And it's on my radar. It's also, convenience in terms of being able to charge and things like that. So, yeah, but it's amazing. And, your passion is amazing. And it's probably just what his was now and even back in the day. How do we learn more, Michael, about Helix?
You can go to chiraltechnology.com. We're in the process of putting a new website up. So the old one is there, but it's not befitting of a research and development company. But we are working on it. The book is available for sale on there. It's The Natural Philosophy by Helical book. You can find it there. It takes you to the Amazon page or the Barnes Noble page. I'm not sure. But yeah, you can learn all about it there. If you want, you can also contact us. There's a contact us part of the page. Yeah, our CEO is Mariah. She's an amazing human being. And our CTO is Rich. He's also an amazing human being. I'm so fortunate. I found my wife through working through this whole company and stuff. And she's an amazing human being. And of course, there's our graphic designer and our tech team and all of those people and everyone else that helps support the infrastructure and helps us be alive and have a place to live and eat and all those other wonderful things. I'm so grateful for and grateful to. So thank you.
Yeah, super exciting. And just like Elon Musk, you're coming up with solutions for our lives, but also there's a goal up there, and very exciting. Thank you for being here. Look forward next time we get a chance to talk.
Thank you, sir.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.